Prince Harry stepped onto British soil, believing it might finally be the start of healing. It was meant to be a low-profile trip, a few quiet meetings, and maybe even a handshake or two behind palace walls. What he clearly did not expect was the coldest of welcomes, and not just from the press or palace aides, but from the very institution he once represented with such pride, the military. Soldiers dressed to perfection, their postures rigid, and their eyes locked straight ahead, offered him absolutely nothing. No salute, no nod, not even a fleeting glance. It was as if he didn't exist. For a man who once proudly wore the uniform, who earned the respect of his nation for his active service, the silence was louder and more cutting than any spoken insult. That single moment, soldiers refusing to salute, is what turned an ordinary royal visit into a global spectacle. The incident was, of course, caught on video. It hit social media like a tidal wave, going viral in a matter of hours. And just like that, the entire conversation shifted. This was no longer just about family drama. This was about respect, or more accurately, the very public withdrawal of it. The symbolism was brutal and unmistakable. In the royal world, a salute isn't just a casual gesture. It's a profound recognition of status, of honor, and of belonging. You don't get saluted merely because you showed up. You get saluted because you are still part of the fold. And Harry, in that moment, clearly wasn't.
The same man who once stood proud in his Blues and Royals uniform, who served 2 tours in Afghanistan, who was cheered at parades and honored for his military service, now walked past a row of soldiers who didn't even flinch. For many watching, it was a gut punch. Whether you're Team Harry or Team Palace, there is no denying the sheer weight of that visual. It wasn't loud or dramatic. It was clean, clinical, and precise. Just guards doing their job. Just guards pointedly ignoring him. And that's what made it 10 times harsher. People close to the palace insist this wasn't spontaneous. This wasn't some rogue moment where a few guards decided to snub a prince. This was protocol, calculated and ruthlessly enforced. No salute, no fanfare, no warm gestures. That is the kind of powerful message you don't have to say out loud, because it's already written all over the footage. The royal family doesn't create dramatic scenes. They let moments like these speak volumes for them. And the message was crystal clear. Actions have consequences. This is where the story gets deeply complicated. Harry didn't just step back from his royal duties. He stepped into something else entirely. Multi-million-dollar deals with Netflix, big tell-all interviews, and explosive documentaries. At every turn, he seemed to pull further away from the traditions he was born into and push himself deeper into American celebrity culture. For some, it looked like bravery. For others, it looked like betrayal. But regardless of where you land, what's undeniable is the fallout. This trip to the UK was supposed to be about building bridges and making peace. There were hopes of quiet discussions with King Charles, an attempt to fix things, to maybe even reconnect. But that's incredibly hard to do when even the guards on the street don't acknowledge your presence. And through it all, the name of Meghan Markle hangs over everything, whether she is physically present or not. And many still see her as the root cause of Harry's painful exit from royal life.
Some blame her influence for his painful estrangement, while others praise her for helping him finally find his voice. But no matter which side you fall on, one fact is undeniable. Her shadow looms large over everything Prince Harry does. And this UK return was certainly no different. You could feel it in every awkward pause, every prolonged stare, and every deafeningly silent moment. That military blackout didn't just sting because of what it was. It stung because of what it meant. It was a cold, hard lesson broadcast to the world. Even for a prince, even for someone born into one of the most powerful families on earth, respect is not a birthright. It is earned. It must be maintained. And if you choose to walk away from the throne, you cannot expect the throne to follow you. And it wasn't just the soldiers. The entire atmosphere of this visit felt profoundly different. Harry arrived without the usual royal motorcade. There was no fanfare, no traditional reception. The palace didn't even send out a press release. There was no flag raised in his honor, and staff reportedly received strict instructions to keep everything purely professional. No special gestures, no fawning, nothing that could possibly be interpreted as ceremonial. He was back on home turf, yes, but he was not welcomed home. He was treated like just another visitor who happened to have a famous name. For someone raised to expect a certain level of deference, it must have been jarring. People who spotted him during his visit said he looked noticeably tense. He smiled for the cameras and waved politely, but his body language gave it all away. Hands clasped tightly, shoulders stiff, and a distinct absence of the confident swagger he once carried so easily in uniform. This was not the confident Prince Harry of past royal tours or celebratory balcony waves. This was a man walking through familiar territory that had suddenly become foreign soil.
The moment the clip surfaced, social media erupted in flames. The footage of guards standing frozen as he walked past, not even flinching, was almost eerie in its cold professionalism, which made it spread even faster. It racked up millions of views, endless reposts, TikToks set to dramatic music, and YouTube breakdowns analyzing every single second. While some loyal fans rushed to defend Harry, saying the military was out of line, the overwhelming majority saw it as a brutal form of poetic justice. The message was simple. You turned your back on tradition, and now tradition has turned its back on you. According to insiders, Harry had privately hoped for a more personal response, perhaps a small nod from someone who remembered serving under him, a fleeting glance of recognition from an old acquaintance in uniform. Anything that might hint that he still had a place in that world. But that recognition never came. The military, much like the monarchy itself, runs on the unbreakable iron rails of protocol. And Prince Harry had willingly stepped off the track. Now, even those who once stood beside him were simply following orders that rendered him invisible. Ultimately, this public blackout was never about the personal feelings of individual soldiers. This was about the message from the institution itself. The crown speaks through symbols, not press releases, through calculated silence, not angry statements. And in that moment, the silent message was one of the loudest they have ever sent. You're out. And until you decide to come back fully, if you ever do, the uniform does not see you. And then there is the raw, powerful element of pride. For those still serving, especially those who remained loyal to the crown, watching Harry go on television and air family grievances simply didn't sit well. The Oprah interview, the Netflix specials, the constant stream of revelations aimed at the very structure they've sworn to protect. To them, this wasn't just Harry speaking his truth. It felt like a deep and personal betrayal, like a brother-in-arms who had access to the family's inner sanctum had chosen to sell its secrets for spectacle instead of upholding his duty of service. Even among the wider British public, the mood remains sharply divided. Some believe Harry's treatment was deeply unfair, that he's been pushed away for daring to challenge outdated norms. Others, however, firmly believe he made his choice. He walked away. And now, they say, he is simply getting a taste of what life is truly like without the protection and privilege of the royal safety net. And today, we are left with the optics of soldiers standing frozen, like statues, while a prince walks by. It's the kind of powerful imagery you simply can't script. It looks like a scene from a prestige drama, but this is terrifyingly real. The deeper cut, the wound that will truly scar, isn't just the lack of ceremony. It's the dawning realization that Prince Harry may never be fully welcomed back. Not by the soldiers, not by the staff, and perhaps not even by the crown itself. His public identity has shifted from that of a beloved prince to something far more complicated, a living symbol of conflict, of tension, and of deeply unresolved family drama. And whether he fully realizes it or not, every quiet rejection, every turned head, and every protocol-enforced snub is another chilling reminder that some doors don't just reopen with a simple apology. Some doors, once closed, are sealed shut. Publicly, Harry's schedule was packed with private meetings, but according to reports from behind those closed doors, the energy wasn't any warmer. Sources say he did meet with King Charles, but even that reunion was governed by strict, almost clinical limitations. There were no cameras, no official photos, just tea, a brief, stilted conversation that barely lasted an hour, No public statement followed, no hint of warmth from the palace press office. Whatever was discussed in that room, it certainly didn't change the optics or soften the deafening silence. If anything, it only made the contrast sharper. Harry could get into the room, but he couldn't get back into the fold.
One palace insider described the visit as purely transactional, not emotional. It wasn't heartfelt, it was polite, surface level, and carried the cold weight of obligation. It was less like a family trying to reconnect and more like two parties in a negotiation, each acutely aware of the terms of engagement. The royal family is legendary for managing their emotions privately, but this wasn't just private. It was distant, controlled, with every single interaction planned with surgical precision. Harry wasn't treated as an enemy, but he certainly wasn't treated like a son returning home either. He was handled. And in many ways, that is so much worse. Outside the palace walls, commentators and critics went into overdrive. Every single detail of his visit was meticulously dissected. Every gesture, or lack thereof, was immediately turned into explosive headlines. What Harry wore, who he spoke to, how long he stayed, and even the specific routes his car took through London became fodder for endless speculation. There's simply no escaping that level of scrutiny when your entire life has been lived under a microscope. But this time, the microscope wasn't just being used for curiosity's sake. It was being used for accountability. Everyone, on all sides, wanted to know, was this the beginning of a comeback, or was this the final, brutal confirmation of his exile? The guards didn't have to raise their voices. The staff didn't have to make a scene. The palace didn't have to release a single statement. The silence did all the work for them. That is the unique, almost artistic cruelty of royal protocol. It has the power to cut you out completely without ever having to directly confront you. And Prince Harry, for all his global fame and immense fortune, found himself on the receiving end of that cold, surgical detachment. You are not punished. You are simply ignored. And for someone who was once at the very center of it all, that is a far more devastating fate.
Meghan's absence, of course, did not go unnoticed either. Many had expected her to accompany Harry, but she remained in California. Whether it was a calculated choice to avoid more drama or a simple matter of convenience, people read deeply into it. Some argued it was a wise move to avoid fanning the flames. Others claimed it was the ultimate sign of a permanent, irreparable split between her and the royal institution. Either way, her not being there gave critics even more room to place the blame for the fallout squarely on her influence, without any distraction. She wasn't physically present, but her name still echoed through every tabloid headline and every Twitter thread. As Harry prepared to leave the UK, the tone of his visit never shifted. There was no final salute, no formal send-off, just a quiet, lonely departure under the very same shadow of rejection he had arrived with. It was painfully clear by then that the visit hadn't repaired much of anything. Maybe, just maybe, it had opened a tentative line of communication, but the institution's message had been set in stone. Loyalty is the only currency that matters here, and if you choose to spend it on your own personal narrative, you may never get any of it back. The public continues to fiercely debate whether Prince Harry deserves this treatment. Is he a rebel prince who bravely spoke truth to power? Or is he a privileged figure who turned his back on the very system that built him? The answer, it seems, depends entirely on who you ask. But what is absolutely undeniable is the sheer power of that one moment. The soldiers' refusal to salute, the palace's calculated neutrality, and the sharp, piercing silence in those once familiar royal halls. For Prince Harry, this trip was more than just a visit. It was a reckoning, not just with his family, but with the ancient, unyielding institution that shaped his entire identity. And in that world, there are no shortcuts to redemption. No amount of celebrity can rewrite protocol. No Netflix special can ever substitute for centuries of tradition. The crown, after all, doesn't chase you.